Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Did you hear that? Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies. Do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. Amen. And he started to chuckle there. I was going, what did I put up on that slide? Did you ever hate someone? I mean, really hate somebody. To the point where it almost consumed you. Filled your soul up with bitterness. Drove you to distraction. Dominated your thinking. Where you actually found yourself wishing harm upon that person. Not that you would seek to injure them yourself through some malicious act, but just wishing that they'd be humble, made fools of, that they would receive their just deserts for whatever transgression they happen to visit upon you. Did you ever hate somebody that much? Now, I'm not asking you this to make you feel ashamed, or to make you think that if you have hated somebody that much, you have somehow failed to live up to the ideal of being a Christian. I'm asking you this to see if you can access what that feels like. To feel how deep, how overwhelming, how all-consuming that sense of hatred can be. I know what that feels like, what it feels like to out and out hate someone. It's not my desire to hate this person. I fully understand how inappropriate my feelings are, especially as someone who preaches about love and caring as much as I do. I understand how unchristian, unworthy such a spirit of anger, such loathing is for me. It's not my desire to feel this way, yet I do. I get the idea of the depth of feeling that this guy provokes within me. Provokes within my thoughts, my spirit. My thoughts of him are not Christian. They are barely civil. And the part that really enrages me, that really drives me crazy, is the fact that I allow him into my head. To the point where not only does he dwell there, but he's built a condo with all of the comforts you can imagine. And it drives me crazy that I allow him to live there rent-free. This is precisely the reason Jesus tells us to turn the other cheek. This is exactly the reason he tells us to love our enemies, to do good to those who abuse us. Because Jesus understood with absolute clarity how personally destructive hatred can be. He knew that if you hated your enemy, if you wanted to strike back with even greater vengeance at those who struck at you, that it could only result in your own sorrow, in your own bitterness of heart, in the loss of your capacity to love, to do good. In essence, you would lose yourself. You would lose your soul. To be Christian doesn't mean to love your enemies because that is what all good Christians do. To be Christian is to love your enemies so that the hatred that you might otherwise feel doesn't rip your soul to shreds. Doesn't tear your world apart. Doesn't take from you the joy of life Christ wants you to be immersed in. That is what Jesus is talking about when he tells us to turn the other cheek, to love our enemies, to do good to those who abuse us. He is asking us, why would you want to spend all of that energy and focus on your enemies when you could instead use your energy and focus on what it means to be a follower of Christ? If someone is living here, rent-free, do you want it to be your enemy? Someone you hate, dominating your thoughts, costing you immense energy? Or do you want it to be Christ living here, inspiring you to love, equipping you to be merciful and forgiving, enabling you to do good in the place of evil, to bring grace instead of hatred? When Jesus tells us to turn the other cheek, he isn't saying to take whatever crap the world dumps on you. Turning the other cheek is not akin to being a patsy, a target, a sucker. Turning the other cheek is not about making yourself a victim, opening yourself to further abuse. When Jesus tells us to turn the other cheek, he is telling us that we have a choice to make. We can respond to injury and insult with all of the anger and hatred we can muster. We can strike back, seek to harm, or we can turn the other cheek. Make the conscious and deliberate choice to refuse to respond to abuse with abuse. To refuse to treat our enemy the way they have treated us. Choose to turn our cheek so that we might find peace within ourselves. Rather than allowing our enemy to dominate our spirits, we choose release, freedom, forgiveness, to turn the other cheek so no enemy dwells within. Now this week, our dog had a negative encounter with an enemy. Our dog, who normally will go after other dogs as if they were the Antichrist, leaves squirrels and rabbits and cats totally alone. She couldn't care less. So imagine my surprise when my dog leapt off of our deck and charged into the night after the white-tailed animal at the end of the yard. It happened in our backyard. We kept the dog mostly outside. We washed her multiple times. But the stench was so powerful, so invasive, that we could not prevent it from filling up the house. I do have to say this. When the dog got hit, I was the one holding her to try to prevent her from going into the house. I was the one who grabbed whatever I could to try and wash the worst of it out. And it turned out that the only thing that we had in our cupboard that was even close was V8. So I used that. I'm the one in the driveway washing the dog down and dealing with the stench face to face. 2 floors away, my wife in her bedroom with the door shut is going, "What is that stink?" Happy anniversary, It was at the point, the smell was so bad. It was at the point that, well, to be quite honest with you, I'm sure if I gave my skin a sniff now, I would still catch the odor. So we had a choice. We could close the house up, lock up all the windows, keep the dog outside, shut everything, the doors, the windows, turn off the fans and the air conditioning and all of that stuff to make sure none of the stink gets inside. But the problem was that it was already in there. And so all we would have been doing was trapping it in with us, that stench. Or we could choose to open everything up. That even though there was that powerful smell outside, we knew that over time, the wind would come and cleanse the house. We could feel the freshness return. So every time we walk through the door, we aren't reminded of the poison that has infected our home, our place of comfort, our safety. When you turn the other cheek, you do just that. You open yourself up to allow the poison out. You refuse to let the stink of anger, your frustration, your hatred continue to hang like a weight around your neck. When you turn the other cheek, you throw open the windows of your soul to seek fresh energy and to allow a Holy Spirit to cleanse your mind and your heart so that you can let go of the anger, let go of the hatred, let go of the malice, And instead to discover we are enabled to reply to our enemy not with animosity, but with mercy. Seeking to understand them. Seeking to forgive and to be forgiven. The enemy that I spoke of, the one that I hate, I decided after a while, after too long of allowing that hate to ruminate within me, that it was time to open the window, to let the cleansing air come in. Now, I knew enough that I could not face him face to face without feeling total stress and total anger overwhelming. So I wrote him a letter. In the letter, I fully acknowledged how I was feeling. And I fully acknowledged the fact that he felt the same way toward me. And then, towards the end of the letter, I actually said, "But I pray that you will forgive me. And I pray that I will have the strength to forgive you." Now, I expected nothing back from that. And he didn't disappoint me. But the fact was that I allowed, for one brief moment, that fresh air of the Spirit to blow into my life and to seek forgiveness and to forgive. Turning the other cheek doesn't mean that you have to become best friends with your enemy. Doing good to your enemy doesn't mean you have to invite them over to your place for a barbecue. It simply means that you are evicting them from your spirit, refusing to allow them to dominate and dictate the way you feel, the way you experience life, and to prevent you from having the fullness of Christ at work in your life. When I asked you at the start of the sermon whether you had hated someone, if there was someone in your life, past or present, who simply filled up your mind with bile, I wanted you to remember what that felt like, if there was indeed somebody like that. But mostly so I could also ask you, how would you like to feel? How would you prefer to feel? Joyful? Peaceful, loved, understood, accepted? To achieve those feelings, is it worth turning the other cheek? Is it worth forgiveness? Is it worth treating your enemy with kindness? Is it worth doing good to those who hate you? Is it worth doing to others what you would have them do to you? Bile or freedom? Overpowering stench or cleansing wind? Destructive hatred or amazing grace? What choice will you make? Because it is that that defines you as Christians.